All right, so we'll begin with, Shira, you want to be first?
I kept thinking of this connection, in Psalm 119, where he says, your Torah is honey to my mouth.
Right.
And I tied it in with eat my flesh and drink my blood, because the Torah testifies to the mind and nature of Elohim. It witnesses
Amen.
to who he is. And so I just thought that was really, it just really tickled me to think that, the eating of his flesh and the drinking of his blood, you took it even deeper than Torah being honey. And I really, really appreciated that.
Awesome.
That was awesome. The second thing was that struck me was when Yeshua said, one of you is a devil, referring to Judas, that he was entertaining plans and the mindset that would slander his reputation. And when you said the word reputation, right away, the teaching, his no other name came to me.
Right.
His reputation is his name. So calling Judas a devil was a serious appellation, because Yeshua is the ambassador, the emissary of the Almighty, and Judas just slandered his name. He was slandering his name and deserved the death penalty.
Amen.
So
Amen.
that whole thing about the name just came to me.
Awesome. Let me just, before you get to the next point.
Sure.
So one of the things I know I made a point, but I maybe didn't emphasize it. He says, one of you is, meaning your intrinsic nature has become a devil, as opposed to one of you, like Peter, has acted like it occasionally. You see what I'm saying? Because Peter was sitting there too. He didn't say two of you are a devil. One of you is, like you have become natured there, okay? Well, Kepha has some moments. We all have some moments, all right? All of us. So just understand, because you mentioned the idea when he said, one of you is. Go ahead.
Thank you. Excellent. The one thought that came to me is, you may be heading toward this in another teaching, so tell me if, I have to wait for an answer. But the devil, Lucifer, the fallen one from heaven, he can't possibly be...
We'll get to the prophets towards the end.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to Ezekiel and Isaiah, and we'll get to some of that stuff. Yeah.
Just put
We have to. It's part of the conversation. So, yeah, it's after we lay all this other stuff out, then we'll go there.
Okay, thanks. And just a quick, timely question. Where should we go to find a little bit more about observing the 10 days of awe?
I haven't really talked about it. I may talk about it on Tuesday, because it's part of the time between trumpets and atonement. It's not necessarily a scriptural requirement to do anything with that. It's very much a Jewish tradition. I'll probably talk about it a little bit during the Rosh Chodesh part of the service, because we're going to be doing Rosh Chodesh and the Rosh Hashanah service on that Tuesday. So it's in my notes to do. I think I did it last year as part of that too. So if you want to go back to last year's Rosh Hashanah, I did that. Okay, next, Mindy. Did I remember your name right? Good.
I know, right?
Look at you. So now you've moved here, and now you get to be on the microphone.
I know. It's a little nerve-wracking being here.
Everybody, let's welcome Mindy to Cleveland. All right.
Thank you. So you may have already just answered my question, but...
Okay, you can sit down then.
That's what I asked her.
I'm kidding.
So I was wondering, is having a Babylon mindset the same as having a satanic mindset, or are they two different
You got to put it right up by your mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, don't be afraid of it. It's not going to bite you. All right. So a Babylon mindset, Babylon is a system. It's a way, or it's like Yeshua says, I'm the way. Babylon's got its own different way. All right? So it's a wrong, false system. It's not a HaSatan mindset or devil mindset. Remember, those are accusatory, adversarial. It just claims to be truth when it's not, Babylon. Okay? Come out of her, my people, because it's not the right thing. Okay? Now, does that serve a certain purpose for, say, HaSatan? Yeah, sure, because then you're in the wrong place. all right? Okay, but it's not exactly the same thing because, again, one is a mindset that's accusatory, adversarial, etc. The other is a wrong system. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. Look, and I want to say something before I forget. So one of the things that it came up to me is I realized sometimes I'll come up here and I'll say things that people are like, I can't believe Rabbi talked like that or whatever. Are you having the same problem with me that they were having with Yeshua from the point of view, I'm not claiming to be him, but from the point of view of, I don't sound like you think a rabbi should sound, or I say things you don't think should be said, or I use a tone of voice or whatever words you don't like? In other words, are you allowing that to be a distraction? Because now you're disappointed, because I'll get the emails. No, Elder will get the emails. Okay. Okay, look over where he is. Where, people say, I can't believe you said that, and my rabbi shouldn't talk like that. Or I'm me. I'm not them or whatever image you think that's supposed to be. Okay? And if I'm anointed, he anointed me knowing this is how I sound. All right? And if you read Peter, if you read John, if you read James, they don't sound the same. They have a different sort of tone and approach, right? They sound like themselves. Okay? And so, if occasionally I say something you think is too off color or not appropriate, I'm sorry, but that's your problem, not mine. I'm not saying that to be callous or a jerk or anything. It just is your problem, not mine. Okay? Because there's not like a verse in here that tells me that I'm supposed to act a certain way or whatever. I'm supposed to be above reproach, etc., but that doesn't mean you get to decide what reproach is. All right? It says I have to hold myself up to a certain standard, and most of this is you don't like the words I use or the tone or the way I say it. He picked me to say it. That's my tone and my words, okay? And you're just going to have to be okay with that. And if you're not, you might be having the same kind of problem as Judas was having, okay? Where you're disappointed, and then you're okay. Go ahead and accuse me and get online like everybody else does and point fingers and be an adversary. I don't even care if you do that. That's like, Yeshua didn't care either. He said, go do what you got to do, okay? But just understand, you could go there because you didn't like the way I said something, all right? Or I used language, and I haven't really used anything that bad, but if I did, you would have a meltdown over it if you were one of these people. I said, let's be careful with that, okay? Let's be careful with that. Because I can tell you this, when I watch the personal developers, people out there teaching, sometimes they use some we'll call it, as the world will call it, they'll use some profane language. Although you've heard my point on that, there's no such thing. But anyway, they'll use what people classify as profane language. And when they use it right, I actually like that they do it because it makes the point clearer, okay? When they call it whatever word is what they got to call it, I'm like, good for you. You're not afraid to call something that's the right word. Oh, but I would never use that language. Good, don't. That's fine, okay? I mean, I do my best to curtail my tongue to some degree. And if you're wondering what I sound like away from the mic, well, I got all the language I use away from the mic. And if that bothers you, stop listening and stop watching. I'm not going to lie to you. I use the right words to convey the right point the best way I understand language to be, okay? But again, I'm talking more about, are you disappointed with what you expect the person up here to be like, sound like, act like, whatever? And is that the problem of the person up here, or is that the problem in you needing them to be a certain way? Because it's funny, because people have said over the years, oh, Rabbi, I hope you never change. I don't change. When I'm up here, I am what you get when I'm not up here. And most of you have had experiences with people who are different at the mic than when you get them away from the mic. And if you know me, you guys who are in here, I'm the same away from the mic as in front of the mic, okay? Except for the slight more protectiveness, so I don't want to hear your nonsense about language, okay? Because I just don't want to hear it. I just don't want to deal with it. It's not worth that, all right? But just so you understand, I'm me. I'm not putting on airs. I'm not going to put on a personality thing for you. If you meet me away from the mic, I'm exactly the same thing, okay? Exactly the same thing. Now, of course, if you're personally counseling with me, I might not be as strong, or I could be worse, depending on what you needed. I mean, I'm trying to hit a general audience here, right? But one-on-one, you might need some more gentle approach, et cetera, and you'll get that, okay? That's not me putting on airs. It's just being the way that to deliver and communicate that you need at that moment. Sometimes you might need stronger than what I've said out here at the microphone, and I will be, if that's what you need. So I just want to make sure that we're clear about that, because I know the email's already going to come for whatever I said earlier in the teaching. So Elder, you're stuck. Okay, so sorry about it. He's laughing, because he's going to get those. And he'll tell them to me or show them to me if I want to see them, and I don't care. I don't, All right? And some will be like, well, that's not the way to be. Well, how do you get to decide that? How do you get to decide what this is supposed to look like? I'm telling you, if you heard Paul every day, he called the Galatians idiots. He said, you stupid Galatians. Okay, you can claim that's not what he said, but go look at it. It's foolish, stupid, whatever. Okay? So I haven't called you all stupid. He called all the Galatians stupid in Galatians. In the letter to the Galatians, he called them stupid. And you know what? He was trying to communicate a point, and he did. He thought what they were doing was stupid. So call it what it is. Why do we need to be coddled? Oh, but my ears and my... All right, go find your safe space. Go watch the very Christian-sounding other Messianics that'll coddle you and never say anything offensive, and you can be safe. You won't learn anything, but you can be safe. I've listened to them. You'll walk away and not remember a thing they said. Today, you'll remember things I said. Okay? But you can go listen to them. They'll never offend you or say anything that'll, the voice will be nice and soft and, Certain websites I can tell you about, it's like watching Mr. Rogers teach Torah. Can you say Torah, boys and girls? I knew you could. This is not Mr. Rogers.
This is such an amazing teaching. And I've actually been watching the Understanding the Ruach teaching as well, and it's just pairing beautifully. So my question is, when you said Satan entered Judas and it was like, go time, like it's time to move forward, it reminded me of Pharaoh and Yahweh strengthening his heart in the way it should go for his purposes. And I'm wondering if that's an appropriate connection or an appropriate way to see this.
Yes. I mean, look, there was, I guess I could use it the same way. I would say there was a strengthening. The heart already wanted to go that way, but there was a strengthening. So I think that's a good analogy. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right? I mean, Judas clearly wanted to do something. And basically, by the way, it wasn't just the bad side that was encouraging him. Yeshua encouraged him. He said, hey, go do what you got to do and do it quickly. It was not just Satan. Yeshua said, hey, go do it. And, don't wait till a week. We got to do this today. This has got to be done today. You're going to do it? Do it now.
Okay, so you were talking a little bit about that and how we can we should allow things to play out, right? And some of the things, you were making the example of following what the leader says, like in my case, if you have a husband, obviously that, but also it's not just this applies to submitting to a decision that somebody in authority can make, but also anything that happens in life. Like it's not within your control or whatever, your authority, right? Because I have authority over my underage kids. So is that part of the blue is that a personality trait when you're trying to get out of what is within your control and trying to manipulate in a way? Or?
All right. So let me make it more clear.
Thank you.
Okay, and this has to do with the fact that anybody who's more emotionally driven, and there are personality types we call, from the color code thing, we call one of them blue. And one of the traits of blues is that nothing should ever go wrong. And I don't think that's a bad trait necessarily. But what happens is you lack the discipline to recognize the limit on what you can and should do to prevent something from going wrong. So if you see something that really is none of your business and not your place to step, but you see something's gonna go wrong, or you at least think it's gonna go wrong, you will often step where you don't belong. That's the weakness of the strength of caring enough. That's a strength. You guys don't think I hate the blues. I love the blues, okay? because you guys do have that great strength of wanting things to be right, okay? You have that great strength of caring. Peter has got all this, I mean, he cares big, okay? But he's also wrong a lot because he does things and steps where he doesn't belong. As you will see, obviously in the garden, when he runs out to try to defend Yeshua and goes to, he doesn't go to cut the guy's ear off. He tried to cut his head off. He missed. Okay, the guy ducked, he moved, maybe he swung at his head and he turned and he cut the guy's ear off. All right? But that's the problem, is that you lack the discipline to know what is and isn't yours to be involved in. Okay? All right? And so that's what Peter's struggling with here, okay? And emotionally, he's flying all over the place. If you're gonna go with Myers-Briggs, he is so strongly sensing, he's in that moment. He's not thinking about what to do, he's just experiencing and reacting to the moment. Okay, so from the letters in the Myers-Briggs, he's in an incredibly sensing place. Mostly SE here because he's not going from a memory necessarily, he's just in that moment, okay? So more SC than SI for those who even know what I'm talking about. But, all right? So in that moment, he's just responding and reacting and he's in that moment. He's not thinking about the moment and logically deciding what to do with the moment. He's just acting and responding in the moment right there, all right? So just kind of keep that in mind as to what's happening. So what do you do to fix that? Well, you got to bring more the T or the logic into it, the thinking. If he was thinking, he'd be thinking, I don't understand what Messiah is doing, so I probably need to pay more attention to see where it's going before I decide to speak up. All right? So I don't put my foot in my mouth. Every time you've ever put your foot in your mouth is because you spoke without thinking. It was an emotional reaction to what was happening in the moment, and you just put your foot in your mouth. Only to realize later, oh, I didn't have enough information. I was wrong. I jumped to a wrong conclusion because I was emotional in the moment. Okay? I mean, that's the only way you can say, oh, you can't wash my feet, and 5 seconds later say, oh, wash everything.
Right. Okay?
He's not thinking. He's just trying to react in the moment with all of his emotion and passion. Now, when harnessed, that's incredibly valuable. Okay? Which is why all you blues are better at getting things done than anybody. All right? You want something done, a blue's gonna get it done better than a red or a yellow or a white. Okay, and they're gonna get it done right. Well, at least the way they think it's right. Okay? Whereas a red might get it done, but it'll just work. Okay, it won't necessarily be right. It'll be effective and work. All that matters to me is, does it work? But you didn't do it right. Okay, but it worked. It's okay, but it worked, all right? So it's one of those things, so hopefully, Janet, you understand, when it comes to personality, when we dig into this, bring your questions about all this stuff to the cognitive function. We're gonna spend, 3 or so 6 hours on this, okay? On one of the days at the beginning of the feast, right? So 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon or something like that, just trying to understand why we do what we do and think what we think and act the way we act, okay? And we're gonna go through sometime, like I said, from Genesis all the way through, and we're gonna see people. You can clearly, if you've been studying this at all with me, you can see how blue Peter is, there's no doubt, right? He's so hard, he's all heart. You blues are all heart. You care, which is why you do all this stuff. You don't wanna just stick your head where it doesn't belong and your fingers where they don't belong. It's because you care so much. That's not a bad thing. You just lack the discipline and the head control, the balance, that emotional place, so you don't just jump everywhere. If you were to harness it, you would be incredible, okay? That's where you need to have some more red come in to help you harness all that, okay? Which is why your leader happens to be, see, all red, okay? So, and that can kind of help you to kind of rein things in a little bit. Because I think we can all agree, we all love Peter. We want to be like him in terms of how much he cares and his passion and his zealousness, right? I mean, you got 11 disciples, at least 10 of which you know nothing about. They didn't do anything big enough to get written up about, okay? But we got a couple of them we know a lot about because they did some things. They were much more active, but you got 8 or 9 or 10 that we hear nothing about, okay? And so this is why we love him. But we also can relate to him, especially if you're blue, which is most of you. That's the number one color out there. Is because in your zealousness, you can tend to overswing. All right? Anyway, Janet, go ahead.
No, and I just wanted to say that, okay, so I don't want to sound like men have a better brain than women, but I mean, when I feel like I'm a little bit going with my emotions, I go to my husband and I ask him, what do you think about this? And he's going to bring the rational, logical, that I may be able
Unless
to...
he's as blue as you or worse.
Unless...
Okay? That's part of the problem. Okay?
Yes.
I think, let me interrupt just for this. I think by default, okay, I think Yahweh intended men to be red-driven, not just red, but red-driven, like having the red strength to lead, and women to be blue with all their relational passion and caring. So I have no problem with you ladies being blue. The problem is you don't have enough red, because red's like the least color out there almost, without the red to balance you, okay? That's why Rebbetzin and I were put together. She's about as blue as anybody can be, and I'm about as red as any can be. Otherwise, there would be no balance, right? I need her, and she needs me to balance that out. I have almost no blue, and she has almost no red. Well, that's not true. Her second color would be red. But she's got so much blue driving, right? And so you go to your husband who is not as blue, okay? What's his colors?
He's white, blue.
White.
He has some red.
But he's
too.
white, right?
He's white, yeah.
So the white is more logical. The red and the white are more logical. The yellow and the blue are more emotional. So you go to your husband who can give you more logical answers because it's coming from a less emotional personality style, okay? Which will balance you, okay? So all you yellows and all you blues, you're much more emotional than the reds and the whites. Doesn't make you better or worse. You just are more emotional, okay? Which means that also you function better socially and interacting with people than, say, the reds and the whites do. Because you have the personality and emotional capacity to interact with people and to love on people in a more open way. Not that whites and reds don't love on people, we just don't do it in as overt a way, okay? So it's just very different. All right, go ahead.
So yes, it's really, really good. And I have come to you also, and you really helped me with that. But one of the things that you mentioned when, after Yeshua said, what you do quickly, and he knew it was him, he was going to do whatever he was going to do, and you said Yeshua did not stop him. And so to me, what I got from it, like I was trying to figure out, I want to be like him, right? So again, it's letting things play out. It's the message that I'm getting, like obviously work on me, working on myself and becoming as he is, but he really is letting, like you said, letting it play out, because I may not understand why things are happening in my life sometimes, but I need to trust him, and
right.
As long as I'm doing his commands, that's all really what matters at the end, not necessarily understanding why or how it's happening.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Look, and also, I think one of the reasons why, because it's a little strange that Yeshua says this and the rest don't really react to it, right? And even says that they didn't understand what was going on. Could you imagine all that was going on in their heads at that moment? By the way, there's more happening at that supper that's not in John, which is that they were fighting over who's the greatest. I mean, they were doing all kinds of things. And so here, when Yeshua says all this, I think most of them were just wanting to make sure it wasn't them. They weren't really concerned and paying attention to who it was, as long as it wasn't me. And you can have that problem with something happening when you realize it's not me. You might be not paying attention to anything else because you were just like, as long as it's not me, it doesn't matter. So that's how they could have missed something, okay? That's how they could have missed it.
In Matthew 16, verse 21,
right.
I noticed, so it says, from that time Yeshua began to show to his taught ones that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem and to suffer much from the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed and to be raised again the third day. So I noticed that the word for necessary is literally to bind. So it's a day. And just a few verses earlier, we were talking about binding with a D-O, a day and D-O. And so when Yeshua, you were saying, he has this revelation about Yeshua being the Messiah. And then down in verse 19, Yeshua says, I shall give you the keys of the reign of the heavens. and whatever you bind on the earth shall be having bound in the heavens, and whatever you loosen on the earth shall be having loosened in the heavens. And I like the way that the translation has reflected the grammar there, because whatever he will be, or whatever he's binding, is something that already has been bound in the heavens, like previously. So he's giving him, I guess, some of that authority in the future. And then in verse 21, like I was saying, there's something bound here. It's bound that all this should happen to Yeshua. And verse 22, like you were saying, he tries to get in the way of that and says, even though this has been bound, I think that shouldn't happen because, of course, all his blue and all that.
Right.
So I was like thinking that Yeshua is giving him this authority to bind whatever has been bound. So from top to below, that authority that he uses later.
Right.
But first he has to understand that he can't usurp that or try to, I guess, get around it. Because in Acts chapter 1, verse 21, this is Peter talking, and they're trying to set up who should be the next two disciples to make the 12.
Right.
And he says that same phrase of D, with "it is therefore necessary that of the men who have been with us all that time, that the Master Yeshua went in and out among us," saying that basically we should have those people. And verse 23, they have those people because he knows through the Ruach that this thing has become necessary, this thing has been bound, and therefore it has to be done.
Right.
And you have to go in with that authority and submit to it versus say, no, this is not happening. Let me, say,
Right.
Yeshua, don't die, like he was doing.
Right. And there was the two that were put forth, and there was only the one that they ended up with. So there was the replacement for Judas. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let me interrupt and say this. The language of binding and loosing, etc., and the way that you're describing it exactly correctly, is linked to Deuteronomy 17. That's why when you say it has already been loosened in heaven, is because the judgment that when you're talking about binding and loosing, Christians, you're not taught this, is when it's done in righteous judgment according to Torah, which is Deuteronomy 17. Okay? So it's not just anybody can do this. Like it says, when 2 or 3 among you are gathered together, there I am. Well, no, it's in judgment when you have authority, and it comes back to this binding and loosing. Okay? So that's why it lines up. Does that make sense now?
Yeah.
Okay? So it's a Deuteronomy 17 referenced here in Matthew. All right, go ahead.
I love those connections to Deuteronomy, and especially with the last Torah portion that we had.
And the way you're describing it, basically Yeshua was saying, this is going to happen. It's already been set. This is going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay? And we can call that, it has been bound, or whatever word you want to use. It is going to happen.
It seems kind of from the translation that it's like from verse 20 to verse 21, it's like a new thought with from that time Yeshua began to show them. But the word that time is really just then. From then, Yeshua began. So he's continuing that.
Yeah.
Like exactly the same topic. So.
Right. So that's why I had to go back for context. So people can understand that this whole thing that comes out starting in 21, which is where I went 21 to 27, the context is in 13 to 22. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. I checked the other Gospels, and some of them he just keeps talking all the way through.
Yep.
Without anything. So the other question I had was with the "get behind me, Satan." I know you said it was more of like an idiom. Could it also have to do with
Not so much
on?
an idiom. You're saying, get behind me, you're being an adversary. This is an adversarial behavior.
Mm-hmm. Would it being behind someone also have to do with the, in verse 24, the denying yourself and following? It says, follow me. Kind of like you get behind me and you follow me, not be in front of me.
I don't have an issue with that. I mean, it may be the idea again of following as opposed to leading and usurping and getting in front. But I think it also has to do with, putting something behind you means that it's now in the past. It's not interfering. You're putting it behind you. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
So I really appreciated you saying that we need stressors for growth, and that you keep bringing that up. You bring it up quite often, and it was good for me to hear today because...
That's why we have children. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud?
Yeah, and even if we don't have children that are stressing us, other things happen.
Yeah.
And it's a good reset to remember, like you said, everything's a test, that we can look at it logically instead of emotionally. Because, even though I'm mostly yellow, my blue really drives sometimes. But, you said yellow is emotional too. So
Yeah.
I got a double-edged sword on that one.
Okay,
So,
and let me just throw this will be really quick. Emotion is stronger in terms of being able to grab the steering wheel and drive than the mind, than logic, okay? So thought is not as strong as emotion. So whatever emotional driving you have, whether it's blue or yellow, whatever, that will easily, so in other words, if your blue is not your number one, it's a strong color. It could grab that wheel anytime it wants to. Because I've had people say, how can I be blue? I've only got this percent. Because if you let it, and you don't have enough strength of mind to stop it, it will just grab the wheel. So will your yellow, and you're just gonna goof off and have fun and not care about getting anything done because you just wanna have fun. It's an emotion, understanding emotion is stronger. Okay, so you really have to strengthen your mind to balance out a strong emotional place. All right, so go ahead.
I'm a girl. I just want to have fun.
I've heard that before somewhere. In the 80s. They still want to have fun since the 80s? Okay.
Yes, we still do. So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I appreciate, and then when you talked about that, you also spoke, right after that about letting the mind of Yeshua be in us. And that is something that I was working on today, thinking about that, trying to bring my emotions in.
Yeah, notice it doesn't say let the emotions of Yeshua be in you.
And actually, what I thought about today, this morning actually, when I was working through whatever challenge I was having in my mind, I was thinking about Judas and how even though Yeshua, and not only that, but even the other disciples, he knew they were going to abandon him. He knew that Judas was going to betray him, and he still loved on all of them, and none of them even knew which one was which, and they wouldn't even believe that they would abandon him, most of all Peter,
And it doesn't say at what point. We have one or two disciples, or a couple of them that we know, like when we have James and John, and we have certain ones we see them being called, right? The majority we don't. So it doesn't say how long Judas was there and when but he's been there with them most of that time, is what we can assume. And Yeshua knew all this time what was what. But he allowed it, okay? And there's been times we've had some Judases in this congregation. People are like, why did you let that person be here? Because it was necessary for the things that person was going to do in terms of maybe taking some of the other people out with them that needed to go, okay? There's just times that has to happen.
And then you said that we need to be under a teacher that has the words of life. And I really appreciate being here because the presence of Yahweh is here. Everybody that speaks. I learned from the songs. I learned from you. I learned from Reverton in the partial pearls. I learned from even sometimes when people get up here and you all, talk back and forth and more things come out. Just the words of life are here. So I'm so appreciative to be here. And the point I wanted to bring out that I forgot was, I appreciate you, just like now you were talking about if we just let things play out, and bring the logical mind in. There were going to be moments when you don't understand what he's doing now. But we just trust that we will understand. It will play out eventually. Later, I'll understand. So I appreciate you saying that, because that really helped me. And if I can remember it, when I get emotional, I can think about that, if things can play out and eventually things will be revealed, or, I'll grow from whatever, just slow down and trust. So wonderful.
Yeah, that's it.
And I love the be willing to serve each other. I really like that too. That
Good.
really made me think about, serving each other. And then I think something you said earlier reminded me of, are we going to stay when, when weird things are said, and am I going to get the root of bitterness, And I really appreciated that being brought out, because, there have been times where things are said either here or, like in the office as you're my boss, or whatever things are said, and then I can, allow myself to go that way, or I can choose to say, what is my part? Like, what am I supposed to get out of this, And so when I focus on the Father and realize it's a test, and like cleave, cling, and hold fast through my emotions, they work out. And Yahweh reveals to me what is my part and what I have to do, So I appreciate you saying that, because so easily when there's something we don't want to hear, like you said, you tell people no, or whatever it is that people don't want to hear. They want to balk, but it's really the thing inside of them that needs to change. So I just appreciate this teaching and looking forward to more opportunities for growth. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Look, we have a thing that we do here, and maybe you take this as a metaphor for you. Elder puts things on my desk all the time for a signature. All right, things come up and they need a signature. Anything that you're feeling needs a signature from your brain. In other words, your thought has to then validate the taking action on the emotion. Don't just do something because of the emotion. It has to be signed off on by the mind. Okay? Does that help a little bit as a picture? Man, I really want to go. Okay, maybe the mind will then logically look through it and go, okay, we can sign off on that. All right? But if you're just so emotional and you're just blocking out, I don't want to hear that. Shut up. You need to have a signature. Okay? The mind has to sign off on the feeling. Okay? The feeling, by the way, doesn't have to sign off on the mind. If you logically figure something out, even if you don't want to do it, it's called discipline, you do it anyway. So it doesn't go both ways. Okay, the mind can do what it wants, logically thought it through and made the process, got guidance, whatever. Even if the emotions are not there, that's fine. But the emotions don't get to just run unchecked and signed off on by the mind. So let that be something maybe that works for you. Okay, Rabbi Tom.
I was thinking about Peter, what he said to Yeshua. Peter was first of all very sincere. He was sincerely wrong, and he didn't realize it. And his intentions were good, and I think sometimes we can be the same way. We can have good intentions, we can be very sincere, but off track.
Yeah, and I think, by the way, for all of you guys who are blue, that's where you get in trouble. You are so passionate.
Exactly.
You are so sincere. You think you're doing good, and sometimes it doesn't play out that way. Not always. Sometimes it plays out exactly that way, right? But where it can go wrong is because you haven't had that signature, okay, from the logic side, all right? Because Peter is all passion, all heart, all emotion, and all of it's intended directly for he thinks it's for the right reasons. Even when he's trying to cut the guy's head off, he thinks he's trying to defend Yeshua, okay? But that's where it can go wrong. However, when it's right, it's amazing because you guys are very passionate and you're very excited and your intentions are all, it's the best. We can say that about each color. We can look at the negative side or the good side of either one, any of them. All right, live stream, we got about 5 minutes for you. That's better than 0 like the other day, so.
From Kenneth Atkins through, actually it's Laura, in John 13:15, is serving our kids how we take care of them daily?
Okay, so he's talking about, so I gave you an example, you should do this as I've done to you. Is serving our kids how we take care of them daily? No, you have a different thing with your children, okay? With your children, you're more like the creator. You're there to provide them to get to the point where they can now walk on their own feet and not crawl, and they can feed themselves. And like I said this the other day, your role with them is not servant, your role is getting them successfully alive to 18 and out of your house. Not that they have to be out at 18, but get them to 18 alive and then out of your house, where they can function and take care of themselves. So that's not the servant point, because otherwise your children think you're their servants, okay? And that's not where you need to be. You are leading them, guiding them, providing for them, and mostly getting them prepared. This is what Messiah is doing with us in a large sense, prepared for life, okay? And if you're so busy doing only for them, you're not really doing what they need to be done for them, which is doing for themselves mostly, right? Teach them what to do, then make sure they do it themselves instead of you continually doing it, all right? If your child is old enough to do laundry, you show them how to do laundry and they do laundry. There's no reason that you're doing laundry for a teenager. They can do laundry. They can figure out how to pour the stuff in and how much to pour and push a button, okay? If they can work this, they can do laundry, okay? They could also cook and clean and feed themselves, okay? They can do lots of things. Teach them. They're gonna need to do these. You should be thinking, what do they need so they can get out of my house and survive? I know that sounds harsh and cruel. I'm enjoying my children out of my house. I enjoyed them in my house, but I'm enjoying them in a totally different way because I'm watching them grow, succeed, and thrive as adults. I feel good that I taught them well. They're actually taking care of themselves. Okay, it's also, for all you parents, it's great to have an empty house. Okay? Do we miss our children? Absolutely. We also don't miss them. Because we enjoy them anyway, right? We're enjoying them in a different way. Okay? But your job is to get to where I don't worry about them. I know I trained them well and prepared them well and saw that they were able to. So my daughter and my son are both doing great on their own. Of course, my daughter's now married, so she's not on her own, but she's still on her own. She's now somebody else's problem. Okay? I don't mean that in a bad way. Somebody else has the burden of responsibility and the honor and privilege to take care of her, which was my honor and privilege because she's amazing, okay? But she's doing a lot of this on her own, just as her husband is, and they're also doing together, just like you do if you're married, you with your spouse. There's a lot that you do on your own, a lot you do with them, and a lot they do, okay? So I don't know that I would go, exactly either, Laura asked the question, okay? I wouldn't go exactly this idea of serving our kids this, all right? I would be more about, the idea of serving each other as husband and wife, okay? The children need to be led with the idea of preparing them. And also, you need to, and I've said this so much, and you need to start young, okay? When they get to at least be about 13 at the latest, 13, 14, you have to be transitioning your relationship to them from dad or mom, okay? Stop mothering them, stop dad, whatever that means, fathering them, okay? I want you to start becoming their counselor, advisor that they think might actually know something. So that my children now call me when they want my opinion on something, okay? And if I give my opinion on something that they're sharing with me that I think might be a little off, I said, have you considered this? And they'll consider it. Whether they do it or not, it doesn't matter. That's their choice. But I'm now in a position where I don't feel the need to parent them. Some of you are still parenting your adult children. Knock it off, okay? And I mean that very strongly. You are not helping them. You are hindering them. Stop parenting your adult children. Turn to become their trusted advisor. My children call me. You know why? Because I have a role they appreciate and respect that I developed starting when they were teenagers. I made that shift gradually to where I kept giving them more and more of the burden, and then they look to me in a different way. So they don't look like when I'm calling, like, oh, it's dad he's trying to parent me. I'm an adult now. Your children they will resent you trying to parent them as adults, okay? Even if they say, oh, I appreciate so, no, they're going to resent you because you're not allowing them to grow. So stop it, okay? It doesn't go well anyway. So just let's not do that. Okay, John?
Yeah, I'm going to go to one from Mike Robillard. How can we tell if we are being an adversary? It seems from Peter's point of view, he was being a concerned friend. Should we take this as a lesson to not butt in on others' business?
All right, I'll answer the second part first. You should never butt in on anybody's business uninvited. Okay? You should never butt in uninvited. Now, you can still be invited without being invited if you have an agreed relationship that says, hey, if you see me doing something, please say something, right? But that's already invited. So it doesn't have to be invited in that moment. You may have a relationship where you said to somebody, hey, if you ever see me going off this way or whatever, please say something, right? But you've invited them in advance for when it happens. Now let's go to the beginning of the question. How can you tell if you're being an adversary? You can't in an emotional place because you already emotionally believe you're right, being a friend, being this, being that. You got to logically go, hold on, slow down. Do I really understand what's happening, or am I jumping in where I don't belong? You can't do that in an emotional space. Your emotion, you as an emotional being can't do that. It takes some logic to go, hold on, this is Messiah saying something I don't understand, doing something, in the case with the foot washing, doing something I don't understand. I probably need to pay more attention and wait to see if whatever, I need more information. Okay? Calm the J down and let the P, right? J is judging, P is perceiving. You need more information. Okay? So you can't be an adversary, by the way, if you're patiently waiting for information. All right? So how do you know if you're being an adversary? Are you opposing whatever the person said? That's an adversary. Yeshua said, they're going to take me, kill me. And Peter said, no, that's an adversary. It doesn't matter what he emotionally thought he was doing. He's opposing. That's adversary. So how do you know if you're being an adversary? Are you opposing? Are you against whatever was going on or was being said? Well, then you're an adversary. Now, if you're logically and in the right relationship realizing they're wrong and you need to stand up and say, hey, then you say, hey, I think you're wrong. Have you considered this? As opposed to, I mean, Peter was like, oh no, that's not going to happen. You're not, oh no. Okay? So if somebody says, hey, I'm thinking of going to do this, and you're like, oh man, that's a bad idea. You might want to say, hey, have you really thought about this? I think this might be a bad idea. That's not being an adversary. Now you're asking them to consider something. You're getting them to hopefully perceive more and judge less and say, do you want to get more information about this? I think you might be missing something, all right? Okay, adversary is opposing, is against. Okay, trying to create a blockage, a stoppage of whatever the person wants to do. All right? Now, you're a parent, your child wants to do something stupid. You might need to be an adversary. Okay? And say, no, you're not doing that. Okay? Now, they may see you as an adversary, and you are opposing, technically you are opposing, so you're an adversary. You're opposing what they want to do. That doesn't make you this negative thing like a Satan, but that's what a role is. You're opposing. Does that make it more simple for everybody? Does that make sense? Thank you, Mike, for the question. All right.
From Milton Kent Jr., if Judas did as he was told by Yeshua to do what he was supposed to do and knowing Yeshua knew, why did he commit suicide knowing he was being used to turn on Yeshua? Why didn't he just continue as a disciple and tell how he was used as a tool?
All right. Good question. But really, had you really been listening, you wouldn't ask the question. And while I'm not picking on you, Melton, here's the deal. Why did Judas do what he did later? Because he got logical and saw what he did and wasn't just in his emotion. So then he realized the mistake he made. Same thing with Peter, when after the third denial, and then the cock crows, and he's like, he finally came out of the emotion to recognize, oh, I was wrong. I spoke out of turn, and now I'm embarrassed and ashamed because I did deny him 3 times. At some point, Judas realized he was wrong. He realized he had put Messiah to death, essentially, okay? And so the answer is, why didn't he just continue? Because he was no longer in his emotion. He calmed down enough after the fact to go, oh, I now realize what I did. I was wrong, okay? You guys have all done that in your lives. When you finally calm the emotion down enough so that you can see things clearly, see straight, okay? Emotion will blind you, make everything all murky and cloudy so you can't see straight, or you only see through this filter instead of seeing clearly. The anger filter, the love filter, this filter, whatever filter, could be good or bad, doesn't matter, it's a filter. So you're not seeing things clearly. And when that calms down and you can see things clearly, then you may make a different choice. You may regret choices you made when you were being filtered, right? You were looking through that filter. Judas figured out when he calmed down enough and realized he messed up, okay? And he couldn't live with himself knowing what he did. That's the answer to that, okay? And so, again, I wasn't picking on Melton, but had you been paying attention with the fullness of it, which again, why we need teachers, to re-explain things, the emotions made him do what he did. The logic of recognizing the reality of it made him do what he did later, okay? Actually, that's not true. The emotional response to his recognizing what he'd done, also, he didn't have to kill himself, but then his emotions kicked up again when he felt guilty. Okay? So he was, both situations were driven by emotion, all right? But he made the switch when he made the switch, where he actually started realizing and thinking, oh my goodness, he was Messiah. He is Messiah. What did I do? Okay? I had a part in this. He had to get past I'm mad at him for not doing what I want him to do. I'm mad at him for blah, 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 whatever. You know, some of you in your lives have already had this, or you will. You've been really angry at somebody, blocked them, cut them off from your life, whatever, only to realize, you know what? I was wrong. But until you get over the anger, you can't do anything with that person anymore. And I know a bunch of people related to me and not related to me that have a hard time ever letting go. Judas let go. And then he had another emotional blowout. And so he ended up taking his own life. Because, again, emotionally, he didn't handle and recognize that what he needed to do is just repent. Okay? And look at the difference between Judas and Shaul. Paul killed a lot of people. Okay? And then came to recognize what he had done and realized, I need to do something to make up for that and do good and not evil. So he didn't take his own life. Instead, he found a way to be a part of giving life. You see the difference? It's the response. Paul did not have an emotional response. Okay, Judas did. Now, Paul was in an emotional place where he was running off around trying to kill all the believers. But then he calmed down, and when he realized he was wrong, he didn't go swing it again, the emotions, just like Peter didn't. I mean, Peter wept deeply when he realized what he had done with denying Yeshua, but then he said, okay, now I got to go forward. Okay, now I got to go forward. But forward movement starts up here, not in the heart, right? You got to decide, okay? All right, so hopefully that made some sense to everybody. Thank you for your questions and comments.